The Necro fleet hung in orbit of Matoria, ready for the final push. Rear kick now, his forearms folded, confidence in his eyes, said aloud. Today, the first race will be no more. They had been at war with the Matorians for 100 years. The Matorian technology was far superior, but the Necro had the numbers 10,000 to 1, and they had ground down the Matorian forces, and now it was the final push to end the war. The Matorians were one of the first races in the universe. Over 1 billion years, they had embedded their machines and technology on every habitable planet in the galaxy. Then came the Necro. They were desperate to acquire advanced Matorian technology by any means possible. That's how the war had started. Jack Niles sat looking up at the night sky. Necro destroyers hung there, too many to count. He was 1,500 years old, but looked 25. The benefits of being immortal. His communicator buzzed, and he put his hand to his ear. Captain, the defense grid is at full power. Came the voice in his ear. Good. All we have to do is keep the Necro at bay until command has got Sunstorm fully charged. He pulled himself up, dusted off his battle-worn armor and walked to the command post. The command post was bustling with anticipation when the Necro bombardment began. Las cannons fired back, but as soon as a Necro destroyer was disintegrated, another took its place. Good gods, how many ships do they have? Said a junior officer. The ships won't matter when Sunstorm fires, laddie, Jack replied. 10 minutes to Sunstorm, came a voice. Defense grid at 70%. The junior officer yelled over the noise. A nearby panel exploded. Defense grid at 50%, he yelled again. Divert all remaining power to the defense grid, Jack yelled. 1 minute to Sunstorm, came the voice. The ground shook, and Jack fell. Sunstorm is ready, came the voice. Jake pulled himself up, lifted the flap that protected the button that would end the war. He put his hand on the button, and a blinding light filled the room, and people started screaming. Pain flared through Jack's body. Something had gone horribly wrong. His blood seemed to boil, and his head felt like it was imploding. Then nothing. He woke with a start, and his eyes flared open. Cole removed his hand from Jack's shoulder. You were screaming in your sleep again, Jackie, Cole said with a grin. Who needs an alarm clock with you around? Jack sat up, images fading from his mind. He climbed down off his bunk, and Cole passed him a mug of coffee. It tasted like despair strained through week-old gym socks. One day, that infernal machine will make something that resembles coffee, said Jack with a grimace. Don't hold your breath, Cole replied with a grin. Jack was an engineer, and, even though he was only 25, he was the best in the unit. He couldn't remember his childhood or even his academy days. There had been a shuttle crash, and even though he had read his own record, he had no memory of it since. Jack pulled on his overalls, wondering if there would be actual eggs and bacon in the cafeteria. Come on, Cole, breakfast methinks. They walked down the corridor when a pretty girl approached them. Jack pushed Cole into her. Cole grinned at her. Morning, Becky. Morning, Cole, she said, blushing. You really should ask her out instead of just flirting with her, said Jack as they carried on walking. I will, replied Cole. When? Asked Jack. As soon as I can muster up the nerve, Cole said, slightly blushing. Are you sure you don't want me to ask her out for you? Jack put on a posh voice. Excuse me, miss, my friend really likes you and wishes the pleasure of your company for supper. Don't you bloody dare, Cole said, punching Jack on the arm. They sat together in the cafeteria, eating something that resembled breakfast. So, what delights do you think they have for us today? Jack said, trying to chew on something that pretended to be an egg. I'll probably be fixing the Valorian waste recycling system, again, said Cole. God, I hope not. It took a week to get the smell out of our room, Jake said, attempting to swallow lumpy coffee. Could be worse. I could be fixing the irrigation system on the stinkweed pods. Jack spat out his coffee. Didn't you want that bit? Cole said, laughing. After a dismal breakfast, they made their way to the maintenance office. The corridor was white and clinical, like all corridors on Praxis Station. Do you think they would mind if I reprogrammed the maintenance droids to paint the walls a nice shade of pink? Cole asked. No, paint them baby sick green. That way, the walls will match the smell. Jack laughed. As they entered the maintenance office, a smartly dressed, stone-faced young woman stood there. She turned to face them as they entered. You two will not repaint the station any color, she proclaimed sternly. Or Marcy. You're no fun at all, Jack said, grinning. That is Lieutenant Kane to you. You have no respect for authority. Engineer Niles. You won't get a sniff of a promotion with that attitude. Cole started to sniff the air. And what do you think you were doing, Engineer Finley? Lieutenant Kane said sternly. Trying to see what promotion smells like. Smells more like stale coffee to me. Cole said with a straight face. Lieutenant Kane looked like she was going to blow a fuse. She was only 20 and straight out of the academy. So, Jack and Cole made it their mission to teach her, the hard way, to command with respect. Lieutenant Kane closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and opened them again. She picked up 2 data pads and handed them to the 2 engineers. Engineer Finley, the communications array is showing faults. Fix them quickly. If the commander can't watch Come Dine With Me, he gets tetchy. Lieutenant Kane then turned to face Jack. Engineer Niles, the Imperial Princess's personal shuttle, has an engine fault. Fix it and, for God's sake, show her respect. I can't have you fired out of an airlock, but Her Royal Highness can. They left the engineering office, and Cole looked at Jack. How on earth do you get the cushy jobs, and I get a misbehaving communication array? I'm just that good, Jack said. Besides, it all depends on what's wrong with the shuttle's engine. It could be a 5-minute fix, or a 10-hour job. The poor shuttle's probably been thrashed to an inch of its life. Well, I hope it takes you a week to fix, grumbled Cole. A week with a beautiful princess. I could handle that, Jack said, grinning. Cole turned left and walked down the corridor. He shouted to Jack. I hate you. I love you too, Jack shouted back. Jack entered the diplomatic section on station praxis. The decor changed dramatically. Gone were the white clinical presence, replaced by beautifully decorated walls, soft lighting and the smell of sweet jasmine in the air. Oh, how the other half live, Jack muttered to himself. He reached Shuttle Bay 6, and the door opened. Jack whistled. That wasn't just a shuttle. It was a streamlined sports shuttle with go faster stripes. Princess Alviana was already waiting for him. Princess Alviana, at first glance, seemed human. 5'9", slim with golden hair neatly styled. Then you noticed her ears. Long, thin and curved back to a point. Her eyes were pale gold. The sort of eyes you could lose yourself in. She wore a grey flight suit that clung to her body as if painted on. She was the crown princess of the Valyrian Empire, an empire that covered a third of the galaxy, and she was the most beautiful woman Jack had ever seen. Hello, beautiful, Jack said. I beg your pardon. Princess Alviana said, shocked. Jack, with his eyes fixed on the sports shuttle, said, A Jack and T65, limited edition cruiser with optional afterburners. 0 to 1000 kph in 3 seconds and handles like nothing else the Jack and shipyards have produced. She is a thing of beauty. She is a thing that doesn't work, said Princess Alviana, walking towards Jack. She, as you call my cruiser, started losing power around half a light year from here and died as I landed. Well, I shall have a chat with your cruiser and see what's up with her, Jack said, pulling out his diagnostics tablet. You really think you can fix my cruiser better than a Valyrian engineer? She asked Jack. Not sure until I find out what's wrong with her, replied Jack, scanning her ship. As Jack scanned the cruiser, Alviana stood behind him, arms crossed and tapping her foot. Jack looked at her and asked, Please don't do that. It's rather off-putting. Alviana looked at him wide-eyed and stopped tapping her foot. Had this human just told her to stop tapping her foot? And why was he treating her like a normal person? She was not a normal person. She was a princess, she thought to herself. She looked over Jack's shoulder and looked at his diagnostic tablet. It was different from the standard diagnostics. It seemed far more advanced than anything in the Valyrian Empire. It wasn't just reading the cruiser's computer. It was reading structural integrity, shield generator integrity, control panel switch pressure, seat position, dirt on the windscreen, and the fact that the toilet didn't flush the correct amount of water. Where did you get that diagnostics tablet? She asked. Oh, it was issued to me. But it was too basic, so I rewrote the base code and updated it. Jack replied. Then he poked his tongue out the side of his mouth, reading his tablet. Finally, after what seemed like an age to the princess, Jack said, It looks like you have blown 3 injectors. I suppose I'd better rebuild them. Shouldn't take more than a couple of hours. And why can't you just order new injectors from the Jack and ship yards? The princess said, not wanting to spend more time than she had to on the human space station. You could, but your cruiser is only 2 months old, so it would take a month to get new injectors. But something tells me that you really don't want to spend that much time here. Jack grinned. So the fastest and easiest option is to rebuild them. Jack walked to the rear of the cruiser and removed the engine panel. He pulled out his torch, turned it on, and looked into the engine. Why would they do that to such a beautiful cruiser? Jack said to himself. I'm sorry? Asked the princess. Oh, the injector system is crappy. It's so badly designed, almost as if they wanted it to fail. Jack replied. Mind if I update the system for you? It'll be faster than rebuilding this travesty. Go ahead, came the reply. Jack pulled tools from his belt and began removing the injector assembly. Once it was out, he put it on the bench and started stripping it. What is your name? Engineer, she asked. Niles, Jack Niles, he replied. God, that makes me sound like an old Earth secret agent. But it did sound better in my head. The princess smirked, then regained her composure. And where did you learn your trade? I was told that I have been tinkering with machinery since I was a small boy, but I don't really remember that, he told her. The princess looked at him questioningly. He put down his tools and faced her. He sighed. In my last year of the academy, there was an accident. I was on a transport shuttle that crashed. All I know is that I woke up in a strange place. I couldn't remember anything, not even my name. I knew how to fix things, write, and stuff like that. The counselors helped me. Then I graduated and started my assignment. What about your family? The princess asked. I'm an orphan, he replied, turning and picking up his tools. Changing the subject, he said. It won't be long, and I'll have you on your way, Your Highness. Pardon. In private, call me Alvy, she said, her ears blushing slightly. Pretty soon, he had finished his repair and was installing the injector assembly back into the cruiser. He pulled out his tablet, pressed a few buttons, and the cruiser pulsed to life, sounding smoother than it did when new. There you go, Alvy, all done. She should run a lot better now. Thank you, Jack. I have to say that I'm impressed with your skill. Unexpected for a human, she said with a grin. She jumped into the cockpit and was gone. Jack stood there for a moment, smiling to himself. Jack started to walk back to engineering. Did I just make a friend of a Valyrian princess? He thought to himself as he walked into a lift door that was closing. Bugger. Not again, he grumbled as he held his bleeding nose. He walked into the engineering office to see Cole sitting at a desk, his feet on it, and a mug of coffee in his hand. Or did the beautiful princess punch you in your little nose? Cole said with a smirk. I walked into a closing lift door, Jack grumbled. Cole swallowed hard. Again, he exclaimed. Yep, again. Third time this week, Jack grumbled. Where's stone-faced Kane? In the commander's office, trying to explain why she forgot to reorder spare parts for the communication array. Cole started laughing. He missed come dine with me. The commander is not a happy camper. We've got an hour until we clock off. Fancy playing hooky and grab an early dinner? Jack said after deciding not to make a cup of engineering coffee, commonly known as the worst coffee in the universe. Cole put his coffee down and jumped up from his seat. Does yes answer your question? 3 hours later, Jack and Cole were sitting at the bar of one of the station's staff clubs, drinking beer. Jack was finishing off a joke when Becky walked up. Cole, do you have the day off tomorrow? She asked, cheeks going red. Cole rubbed the back of his neck, showing his nerves. Yes. Well, maybe you could buy me a drink, and if it goes well, we can spend tomorrow together, she said, hands clasped in front of her, looking at the ground. Cole straightened in his seat. Sure, what would you like? Jack grinned. Well, I think that's my cue to go to bed. Can't you stay for one drink, Jack? Becky said. No, I could do with an early night, but thanks for the offer. He got up and said his goodbyes. He walked to the room he shared with Cole. He climbed into bed when his communicator beeped. He picked it up and looked at the message. I don't know what you did to my cruiser, but it's twice as fast now. Thank you, Jack. Alvy. He sent a message back. Anytime. What the bloody hell are you getting yourself into? He said to himself. He turned off the light, closed his eyes, and fell asleep. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Jake felt like a third wheel as Cole and Becky seemed to be permanently locked in a lip look. In the evenings, he would get messages from Princess Alviana. At first, it was strange and worrying, but soon he began to look forward to their conversations. In the third week, Jack got called to the commander's office. Somebody's in trouble, sang Cole as Jack walked out of the engineering office. Jack wandered through the corridors of Praxis Station, trying to remember what he had done wrong. Every repair was perfect, and no complaints were lodged, so why was he being summoned to the commander's office? He walked into the command suite and looked at the secretary, who looked remarkably like a doctor's receptionist. "Engineer Niles to see Commander Hicks," he said, trying to look as if he belonged there. Jack was told to take a seat. After what seemed an age, he was called into the commander's office. "You wanted to see me, Commander Hicks." "Sit down, Engineer Niles," said the commander, without looking up from the tablet he was reading. "Sir, did I do something wrong?" Jack asked as he sat down, and Commander Hicks looked at him. "The Valerie have requested that we send one of our engineers to represent Earth, to explain our engineering principles and demonstrate lateral and creative thinking. For some reason, Earth Command have selected you. You have the best repair record out of anyone, so you are going to Valuria Prime. I understand I have a good repair record, but lateral and creative thinking," Jack said, surprised. "For God's sake, you fixed an FTL drive in the heat of battle with duct tape, a piece of string and a teaspoon. And for some unknown reason, the damn thing ran 100% better. Our top engineers still don't understand how you did it. That is why Command wants you to represent Earth. Do I have any choice in this, Commander?" "No," came the answer. The next thing Jack knew, he was on a transport heading for Valuria Prime, listening to the hum of the FTL drive and thinking to himself, "That doesn't sound right. The pulse injectors are out of alignment." He closed his eyes. 5 more hours of this, and he was bored out of his mind. Cole had given him a book called 101 Ways to Meet Non-Human Entities, and Becky gave him a book called Valurian for Dummies. He had read both books and was now reading the back of a sick bag. The transport ship re-entered normal space above Valuria Prime. He boarded the little shuttle, and it headed towards the surface. As the shuttle flew over the buildings of Rukan, Valuria Prime's capital city, Jake looked out of the window. The buildings were amazing. 150,000 years of history just out the viewport. It seemed so alien yet so familiar. Jack noticed that the shuttle was heading to the Imperial Palace. "Excuse me, why are we going to the palace?" Jake asked the pilot. "That's where you're meeting the Imperial engineers. Didn't Command tell you?" Jack sighed. The distinct lack of information from Earth Command was legendary. The shuttle looked so out of place in the Valurian hangar. Streamlined ships with graceful curves gleamed while the Earth shuttle looked like a resounding thud in comparison. As he was escorted through the shuttle bay by 2 guards, Jake spotted a cruiser belonging to a certain princess and wondered whether it had been returned to standard or left as he fixed it. He decided he would have to ask her next time she messaged him. A tall, immaculately dressed Valurian approached. "Good evening. Engineer Jack Niles. My name is Caton. I take it that your trip was uneventful." "Not too bad, thanks," Jake replied. He followed Caton through the palace, a mixture of Star Trek architecture and a medieval castle. Eventually, they stopped outside the door to his room. Caton handed Jack a tablet. "This has your schedule and a map of the palace showing you the areas you are allowed to go. The red areas are restricted." With that, Caton turned and left. Jack entered his room and whistled as he looked around the large room. "Jesus Christ on a bike, how many of me are staying here?" he said to himself. The room was indeed large. It had a reception area, a lounge, an office, a bed, and a bathroom. It was more like a large apartment than a room meant for an engineer. There was a food and drink dispenser on the wall, and Jack decided to try the coffee. It was amazing, not like the lumpy battery acid they had on Praxis Station. The dispenser had been programmed for human food, so he decided to try the roast beef. It was the best he ever had. "I could get used to this," he said, then realized he was alone. Jack chuckled to himself. After eating, he curled up in the most comfortable bed he had ever lain in. As he slept, ancient machines in the palace and the museum started to pulse to life. Machines the Valerie had been studying, but still had no idea how they worked or how to turn them on. "Captain. Captain, remember." Jack woke with a start. He had heard a voice, but he was alone. He got up and went to have a shower. He had never used a sonic shower, and he marveled at how clean he felt. After getting dressed, he sat down to view his schedule. He had 2 days off to acclimatize himself, which pleased him, and he munched on a bacon sandwich. A chime came at the door, so he put down his sandwich, walked to the door and opened it. There stood Princess Alviana, looking stunning in a simple dress. Her blonde hair was in a single braid hanging down her back, and her long ears pointed forward. Jake stood in awe of the beautiful alien woman. "Are you not going to invite me in, Jack?" Alviana said with a grin. "Of course," Jack said, moving back from the door. Alviana walked in and closed the door. She got a drink from the dispenser and sat down. Jack sat opposite her. "Do you like the apartments I chose for you?" she asked. "They're amazing. But why?" "Because they are close to the royal apartments and easier for me to visit you." Alviana grinned. "I thought I would show you around the palace and the gardens to help you settle in. Won't the Emperor be upset that you are spending time with a lowly engineer?" Jack asked, worried that he might be fired out of an airlock for talking to the princess. "Oh, Papa already knows about you and is okay with it," she replied. Jack choked on his coffee. "I don't know whether to be honored or scared about being imprisoned." "Oh, don't be silly. After Papa saw what you did to my cruiser and tested it, I told him about our conversation, and he said you sound like someone I should get to know better." She put down her empty cup and laughed at Jack while he had an existential crisis. They walked through the gardens, and Jake marveled at the plants from different worlds, while Alviana told him where each plant came from and whether they were safe, carnivorous, or sentient. In the middle of the gardens was an ornament. It looked like a stone box with strange symbols around its base. "And this is part of my father's first race artifacts. He's an avid collector, and his knowledge of the first race rivals Albert, the museum's curator." Jack ran his hand along the artifact. It felt smooth to the touch and slightly warm. The artifact started to glow. "Captain, please remember." "Did you hear that?" Jack asked. "Hear what?" Alviana replied. "That voice," Jack said, slightly worried. "We're alone here." There was no voice. "What did it say?" She looked at Jack. It said, "Captain, please remember." It was a woman's voice. Jack was sweating. His legs felt like jelly, then he saw it. The control room from his nightmares. People screaming, then nothing. He started to come to. The air smelled clinical, and he could hear a strange hum. Then he opened his eyes, and he saw a pair of golden eyes looking back at him. "You gave me a scare, Jack?" came Alviana's voice. Jack tried to sit up, but it felt like his body had devoured his head and had decided to beat itself up with a medium-sized bat. "How did I get here?" Jack asked as feeling started to return to his body. "You collapsed in the garden after you touched the artifact. It is now glowing and projecting strange symbols. Then you began speaking a strange language while unconscious. Papa has been in here listening to you. He says you were repeating the same phrase over and over again." "How long was I unconscious?" "For 4 days. I've been so worried." "But you're awake now," Alviana said, relief in her voice. The doctor walked up and spoke to Alviana. "Your Highness, could you translate to Engineer Niles that he will be here for 1 more day? Then he can leave, but he must have 2 weeks rest before going back to work." Alviana turned to Jack and opened her mouth. "I understood him," Jack said with surprise in his voice. "Shocked," Alviana said. "You didn't tell me that you could speak Valuary." "I can't," said Jack. "But you are speaking it now," came her reply. "I'm really not. All I can say in Valuary is hello, goodbye, and where is the toilet?" Jack protested. "Then the artifact must have done something to you." Alviana looked Jack in the eyes. "I've touched it countless times, and nothing happened. Do you think it might be because you're human?" "Not sure, but I do know my head is killing me," Jack said, rubbing his temples. The next few days consisted of Albert and his experts, who studied the first race, poking, prodding him and asking so many questions that even coffee didn't help. On the evening of the 4th day, Jack escaped and found himself looking over a balcony at the top of the palace. His mind was going 10 to the dozen. How was it that he could understand the Valerie language? Why did the artifact activate when he touched it? And then there was the question of the woman's voice telling him to remember. "You have caused quite a stir, young man," came a voice from behind him. Jack turned around to see the Emperor holding 2 mugs. He straightened up and bowed. "Your Majesty, I thought you could do with a coffee," the Emperor said, passing a mug to Jack. Jack thanked him and took a mouthful. The Emperor moved and stood next to him. They stood in silence for a while, looking out over the city. "Albert has got everyone looking for you, and Alviana is beside herself. I have never seen her like this over a man. I think she likes you," the Emperor said with a grin. After they had finished drinking, the Emperor guided Jack downstairs to his study, where Alviana and Albert waited. The Emperor's study was a large, comfortable room. There were shelves along the walls with first-race artifacts. There was a large table with manuscripts on it and an array of comfortable chairs. The door opened, and the 2 men entered. "Papa, you found him," came Alviana's voice, but something was wrong. As soon as Jack walked in, the artifact started glowing, and he yelled in pain, put his hands to both sides of his head, and fell to his knees. Captain, remember. Please remember, came the voice. Images flooded into Jack's mind. Him walking with two children. A battlefield where large black creatures with four arms and hellish features were attacking. Then, the control room with that button that started all the pain. Please don't make me remember. The memories hurt too much. Jack cried. Alviana was now on the floor with Jack, arms around him. I'm here, Jack. It's okay. I'm here. Jack looked up at Alviana, tears flooding his face. You don't understand. All the people I've lost. All the civilizations I've seen crumble. I tried to help, but it still happened. Captain, you must remember. You are in danger. The Necro are here. You must remember. Came the voice. At the name Necro, Jack's eyes opened wide. If they were back, everyone was in danger. He stood up, memories returning. He looked around at the shocked faces in the room. Tira, come to me. Jack's voice came out strong. In the middle of the room, a glowing figure appeared. She was around 6 feet tall, with short black hair, glowing skin, and eyes of pure light. Jack said with authority, the Aster is cloaked and in stationary orbit. A single necrocraft is 1,000 light years and closing, Tira replied. Jack realized that he owed the Emperor, Alviana, and Albert an explanation. I suppose that I should explain. I am of the first race, the Materans, and before you ask, my race is, or was, immortal. We developed a DNA bomb targeted at the Necro, but something went wrong. It didn't just kill the Necro, it killed everyone. My wife, my daughters, my friends, and my race. Somehow, I survived, the last of my race. A few years ago, I wiped my memory because the memories and loneliness were unbearable. So I went from Captain Jack Niles of the Matorian Defense Force to Jack Niles, engineer with no memory. They all looked at Jack, stunned. Jack turned to the Emperor. Your Majesty, I have to stop the Necro before they destroy the Empire. Tira, where is the Necro ship heading for? It is heading for the East Quadrant. 3 systems, 14 inhabited planets, and 1 space station, Captain. Jack said. The Emperor picked up a communicator. General Cotton, I need you to send the fleet to the East Quadrant. Yes, my Emperor. Preparing the fleet now. Came the reply. They don't stand a chance. Plus, they won't make it in time. I can make it there in a fraction of the time, said Jack, eyes fixed on the Emperor. Then go, the Emperor told him. The safest place for you would be on the Aster. I suggest you come with me. The Emperor nodded at Jack. Don't you dare forget me, said Alviana. Albert chimed in. The chance to go on a functioning first-race starship. I have to go. Jack smiled and turned to Tira. Tira, transmat us on board. A second later, they were on board the most advanced ship Alviana had ever seen. There were no monitors but holographic controls. The walls seemed to have been grown rather than constructed, and a soft ambient light radiated from them. Jack walked to the front of the control room, and a chair grew from the floor. Jack sat down and pressed a control. Valerie Prime vanished from view, replaced by a space station. In the darkness of space, a large black jagged ship moved silently towards Valurian space. It sped up, and space folded. Praxis Station shone in the light of Earth's sun. Various diplomatic ships were docked, and small shuttles flew between the planet's surface and the station. The Terran Defense Destroyer, the Barcross, hung in space next to Praxis, keeping watch and protecting the diplomats on the station. On the command deck, a young ensign approached the captain. Here are the duty rosters, sir, he said, handing the captain a tablet. The captain took the tablet and looked at the young man. He looked only 16. What's your name, son? He asked. The young man straightened. Ensign Bowman, sir. This is your first tour. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. I joined the crew 3 weeks ago. And how are you enjoying it so far? The captain asked. Ensign Bowman was just about to answer when an alert sounded. Distortion 500 kilometers off the starboard bow, Captain. Came a voice. Red alert. The captain ordered. Space seemed to shimmer, then a huge black ship appeared. It dwarfed the Barcross and Praxis station. Hail them, said the captain. The communications officer started to talk into the microphone when a loud, disturbing voice came out of nowhere. You will all be sterilized for the glory of the Necro. Arm weapons, the captain shouted, But it was too late. A beam of light came from the Necro ship, slicing through the Barcross's shield and destroying it completely. On board the station, pandemonium reigned. Commander Hicks had issued the evacuation and was swearing at the top of his voice. "Send out a distress signal. We need help now." The black ship fired another beam of light, and Hicks closed his eyes, waiting to die. The beam hit something in space that seemed to absorb it. Then another ship appeared. It was the size of a capital ship, long, thin, with beautiful curves. On board, Jack pressed a holographic control, and a view screen appeared. "Necro ship. This is the Asta, respond." An image formed on the screen. Black skin and a face of nightmares. "I am Ricardo, captain of the Kulchow. Who are you to defy my kill?" Jack's eyes narrowed. "I am Captain Niles of the Matoria ship Asta, and the Valorian Empire is under Matorian protection. You are the last of your kind. Please don't start a fight you cannot win. You shouldn't exist. First race. You all died along with my people. I will destroy you in honor of my forefathers. Prepare to die, Matorian," Ricardo said with hatred in his voice. The Kulchow fired hundreds of light bolts. They flashed through space, but the Asta's shield absorbed them. Jack closed his eyes and pressed another control. I'm so sorry." A tear fell down Jack's cheek. A wave came from the front emitters of the Asta. It hit the Kulchow, and all power was lost from the ship. It shuddered a few times, then imploded. Jack slumped in his seat. Alviana walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. Jack cried. "It's over. The war is over. I am now truly alone." "You will never be alone," Alviana said, wrapping her arms around him. 10 years had passed since the battle at Praxis Station. Jack and Alviana had married and, with the help of Albert, Cole, and Becky, had eliminated starvation, drought, and common diseases from the Empire. They improved the technology and the standard of living for billions of species, and a new era of peace had started. Tira, the Asta's sentient AI, had created a gene therapy that allowed Jack to grow old, effectively making him mortal. This meant he could live out the rest of his days with Alviana. Tira started teaching a new generation of engineers and doctors, and was happy. Jack sat in a chair in the garden and was admiring the view when an 8-year-old boy climbed into his lap. "Tell me again of the sweeping mountains of Matoria, Papa." Jack looked over at the others and smiled. Tira was arguing with Albert about history. Becky was feeding their son. Cole was attempting to cook on the barbecue while Alviana cradled their sleeping daughter. She looked up at Jack and smiled back. For the first time in millions of years, Jack felt truly happy.